All right, welcome to another episode of Reptile Fight Club. Today we're joined by Kori Martin, so we're excited to have her on and talk a little bit about her breeding and projects and things like that. So, and with a nice fight topic on there too. So, of course, Rob's here, faithful co-host.
Hello.
Wait. Oh, great. There's a slight delay.
Is it away?
Yeah, it's the hit and record. It just messes it up.
Podcast is about, it knows that we're about to cut it off.
Yeah, it's rebelling in its last dying legs. Well, shoot. I guess we'll just kind of maybe turn the time over to Rob and hear about his trip. Then
Well, how about we hold that one for the next week, because it might wind up being you and I, and we can chat through some stuff in your perspective. So let's just focus. I'm still kind of in recovery, shall we say. It was a great trip. I guess the long and short, quick trip, great trip. We definitely pushed it hard, Eric and Brandon Valentine and I, to San Diego and surrounds. Saw the two principal things, saw 3 more new species for me in terms of the U.S. Crotalus Forms Project, up to 19 to 27 by my count, in terms of how I maintain the list, which apparently puts me one above Dr. J. And I can make up even more ground here in a month or so than he can, because he's already got a couple of those that would be open spots for me. So we'll see. Maybe he'll try and throw me off the scent and run me astray, but we'll see. But otherwise, I'll be here to maybe interject. I'll just have to wave my hands around, and then there'll be a pause, and I can interject without causing too much disruption. But otherwise, I'm going to let you two run the show.
All right. Darn that Squadcast. I'm not sure what's going on here, but what do you do? Yeah. Well, Kori, what's going on with you lately? You got some good stuff cooking in the incubator?
I do. I have a surprise clutch of peacock monitor eggs right now.
Oh, cool.
They tend to be really shy, and I don't see much more than their face. And so I had never seen a copulation. I had never seen my female's body to have any sense that she was gravid. I just was cleaning the water, and I lifted up the water container, and there were eggs underneath it.
No way.
And so
awesome.
most of them were not good, but it looks like I got 3 good ones in there.
Oh, cool.
They're starting to vein up and stuff. So that's exciting.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Are they kind of they're shy animals, and do you kind of have an empty cage syndrome, or do you get to see them? You do.
Usually they'll kind of scutter away when you walk past, or you'll see their heads quite often. I have a log that's horizontal, and you'll see their head poking out under the heat light. And so you do get to see them. It's not empty cage, but it's they're definitely, you don't see a lot of them, and you don't see a lot of them throughout the day. But the male you see a lot more often. He's a little bit bolder, but the female is pretty shy. And that's pretty common for them. They tend to be a shyer species, and mine were both wild caught. And so I think that captive would be a little bit calmer, probably, as tends to happen.
That's cool. Well, congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank
They're
you.
Beautiful lizards for sure.
Thank you. And then, then I've got a couple clutches of black tree monitors cooking.
Cool.
I've got green tree monitors cooking, and then a couple, I'm trying to think. I think I have 1 clutch of Ackies going right now. So, yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, it's funny how black trees used to almost be kind of like a cheap, people didn't want to work with them. They were kind of a garbage species in a lot of people's minds. But
it's so weird. I have no idea why. I guess probably because they've been a little bit harder, at least in the US. There aren't a lot of people successfully producing them right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of what you see out there is stuff that's been wild caught and is maybe not of the greatest health and not the greatest looking animals and that sort of thing. So I don't know. They're incredibly beautiful. They should be a lot more popular than they are. That's for sure.
Yeah. I've always liked those better than the green trees. I think they're just so cool. That jet black, just
and when they're like freshly shed, it just like glistens. It's so cool. They're really pretty. And then the babies with the spots on them. They're neat animals.
That's awesome. I'm glad you're working with those and kind of establishing them a little better in captivity.
Yeah, I've got a few other pairs I'm working on and some grow up captives, and I'm really, really trying to get that group established. So yeah, cool. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. And I don't know, that's those monitors are a lot of work,
they're a lot of work. They're not like feed it, water it, clean poop once a week, you're good. It's pretty much it's daily, whether I'm spraying to keep humidity levels right or feeding most days, particularly the breeder females. I've got to constantly be working on getting them food, and it's a lot more active for sure, but it's also what I really enjoy about it because the opposite of that is they're out and they're active and you can watch them, and it's really fun. You get, I don't know, at least I feel like I get a lot more from the experience working with them. So.
They're just so rewarding too. I mean, just that intelligence and the exploration and it's so fun to watch them hunt and eat and all that good stuff.
Oh yeah, you can see the wheels turning. Yeah, they're so smart.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I recently got rid of the only monitor. I had some Ackies for a while, and I just wasn't doing great with them, and didn't have the time, so I moved them on. But they're just so fun. I always think, okay, I can do this, and then I get them, and then they don't breed, and they take up a lot of room. Then I'm like, well, maybe I shouldn't do these. I'm not doing them justice. So.
Yeah, the main reason I have them is just so that if I'm doing a show or that sort of thing, I can direct newer people to the more appropriate monitor lizard that they should be interested in, as opposed to the tree monitors.
Yeah. But I mean, it seems like there's quite a bit of success being had with the tree monitors.
There is. The past few years, in particular, there has been quite a bit of success. Someone just hatched Boami recently, which was really exciting.
That's cool.
So yeah, it's definitely picking up, and that's really neat to see.
Yeah. I've seen one species of tree monitor in the wild, and it's the Keith Horneye up in Cape York, up where we
that's amazing.
Well. It was so funny because I heard kind of some rustling, and I'm like, I'm going to go check that out and see what it is. And I kind of run into the into the understory and look and see this kind of tail disappear up a tree, and I'm looking, and it's kind of going to the other side of the tree. So I'm chasing it, and the slower ones, my dad and Rico Walder were coming in behind me. And me running around the tree scared it where they could see it really well. So they watched it, and I just got a glimpse of part of it, as I'm trying to circle the tree like a
that's
monkey.
Too cool.
Yeah. But it's fun to see. So we didn't get any pictures or anything like that, but up in the Iron Range. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I saw somebody maybe last year, 2 years ago or something, they had these like close up pictures, and it's like all posed on a branch.
Oh yeah, I've seen those too. How the heck
did you get that?
There's like a fairly low log, and it's just like draped along it.
Yeah.
What? Yes.
I guess you get
pretty lucky.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
They're really neat animals for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really cool.
It's cool. I really like the blue trees too. They're just
me too.
Beautiful animals.
Yeah, I've got two pairs going right now, but they've only been together a month and a half. So we're still getting used to each other. But hopefully one of the pairs decides to get something going before too long.
Yeah. So, nice. Yeah. Well, no lizards for me yet. I've got a bunch of snake clutches in the incubator.
What do you have cooking up?
I've got some womas. The womas aren't faring too well though. Like the eggs are kind of crashing from one of my large clutch that I had. Most of the eggs kicked off pretty quick. So I don't know if I didn't get the male in there fast enough, and then I've got some Antaresia clutches. My latest was a nice clutch of pygmy pythons. So
oh, that's great.
there's 9 eggs, so not a bad clutch for her. And
that is great.
Got another female that should be laying, sometime soon as well. A big black-headed female. I got to watch one of my Western Stimsons lay eggs. Like she was in the process of laying when I checked.
Really?
She had like 4 or 5 out, and then she laid another 10 or so. I think there were about 15, 16 eggs. So,
oh, how lucky.
That's pretty fun. Yeah.
That's great. Wow.
It's always nice to kind of catch that. And I filmed one of, like, I did a time lapse. So it kind of shows the egg coming out kind of quick. And
that's amazing.
It's pretty fun. So I was happy to get some cool footage like that. But,
wow.
Yep. So we're in full swing here. I'm hoping everybody lays before I leave. I'm headed out to Australia in a week or two here. So it should be nice to get back up there. But
oh yeah, do you have any that are due pretty soon?
That black-headed python female should be laying, that's imminently, and then
that's exciting.
Yeah, and so I think I've got 3 or 4 more females to go.
Oh, very cool.
Excuse me.
Oh, you're good.
Something went down the wrong pipe or something.
Is your black-headed a first timer, or has she gone for you before?
She's gone many years, and I'm just terrible at getting them to hatch. So hopefully this is the year I figured out. Well, I got some to hatch last year, and actually they're taking off now. But
that's great.
They were the first clutch of the year, and I had a temperature spike in my room, which brought up the incubator to over 100 and something degrees. And so I'm like, great, I just killed that clutch of black, and they all look pretty good. I caught them pretty soon after being laid, and so I was really upset. And then I thought, they're just all going to die. And a few, died pretty quick. And then 3 of them went the distance, but they hatched out, and they have like reduced eyes or missing eyes. So
so it must have been the heat at that exact point in development. Interesting. So, were they hard to get started?
What's that?
Were they hard to get started?
Yes, they're a pain. I thought pygmy pythons were bad, but man, blackheads, make you really frustrated. But it was kind of funny because a couple, like a month ago, I thought, I'm just going to throw something in there, see if they take it. And they went nuts. They were jumping, crawling all over trying to catch that mouse. And so now they're solid. Yeah. They once they flip that switch, there's like no turning back. So it's kind of nice when they finally do. But I spent last fall assist feeding blackheads, and
that's fun.
Good times. And they were really frustrating sometimes.
I bet.
Yeah. So it's worthwhile once they make the switch and decide they want to eat rodents. I mean, I don't know. I heard a really nice podcast. It was I think Project Herpetoculture, and they were talking to a grasshopper breeder.
Yeah.
The name fails me, but
probably Kai.
He is the one who worked with Kai to
gotcha. Okay.
Grasshoppers. Yeah. So
gotcha.
I guess I need to look it up, but he was talking about kind of this phenomenon in herpetoculture where we're feeding things like crickets and roaches and other nocturnal insects to these diurnal lizards, and it's kind of like why
that's
don't we
valid
do a
point.
diurnal insect instead of a nocturnal insect? So it was kind of it was a really great episode. I really enjoyed it. And
I've tried twice getting grasshoppers going, and I failed miserably both times.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, I've not had success. They're so fragile. If you buy normal lettuce instead of organic, like one time, that might be enough to wipe them out.
Mm-hmm.
It's
weird. Yeah.
He said Dean Missimer, he said, is the person.
Oh, okay. I missed that. I didn't see where he said it. Anyway, yeah. What's the name again? Sorry.
Dean Missimer.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I was almost there, but he had to mime the name, and I played charades. I was a little slow. Kori beat me. But yeah, so but that was a really fascinating thing to kind of think. And we do kind of have a limited amount of different feeders that can be bred in bulk, and so I don't know, it'd be interesting to, and it's really cool that somebody's taking such a project on to
it really is
breed a new feeder insect and try to figure it out for the rest of us. But
it
like
really
you
is.
said, it's not that easy.
It's not easy. It's I have a lot of respect for the work that they've done to be successful with it, because it is not easy.
Yeah, I mean, they need to bask and they need fresh
Mm-hmm.
greens, and you got to have the right greens. He said he fed them kale once, and it just killed them. Like they were dead eating kale. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah,
so, yeah,
that's wild.
But, I don't know. Kudos to him, and hopefully he's very successful and can teach others how to do it.
Absolutely,
and streamline it or figure something out that
absolutely
makes it easier.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I'm headed out tomorrow to go herping, so I'm excited.
Locally?
Locally, yeah.
Yeah, that's fun.
Yeah, I need to find some Utah species that have eluded me thus far. So I'm going to go look for Utah milk snakes. I did a little trip out Monday to go look for smooth green snakes that have kind of the western extent of their range occurs in Utah. So at the periphery of that, but I was in an area where people have found them before and it's good habitat, but it was just a little cold. It hadn't. It was about 10 degrees too cold in the not overnight temperatures and the daytime temperatures, and the place I'd kind of found on Google Earth, I went to go there, and the road was blocked off with this locked gate. And,
no!
I think it was the 29th, and it opens on the 1st, and so I'm like, crap, I'm 2 days too early. So, yeah,
that hurts.
What do you do? But we found a nice hillside that had good habitat, and I think it looked like people had been there before because it looked like the rocks had been flipped at some point, and put back, maybe not quite so carefully. So, and there was like grass under some of them, so they're over, but pretty nice hillside. But one of these days I'll hopefully find one of those as well.
Yeah, well, good luck.
Being gone most of May is not going to help my local herping much, but come June we're going to do some herping down in
I do not feel sorry for you, Justin. Like, oh no, I have to go to Australia.
That's a good point. That's a fair point for sure. I'm not complaining, but I'm excited to herp locally too. So
yeah, absolutely. All I've found so far locally this year is a Western Diamondback that was still caked in mud.
Oh, okay. Just coming
out. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Ugly stage of
exactly.
Yeah. Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
It's always good to find the first snake of the year.
Absolutely.
I went out to a local garter snake den and found about a dozen.
How fun.
It's a mixed group. So there's two different species that are there, the Sertalis and the elegans. So the wandering garters and the valley garters. And so we got to see both species kind of in the same area. And there was actually a group under some artificial cover. There was like this old box or something that I flipped over, and there was like 5 or 6 of them under there together.
Oh, neat.
One of the Sertalis, and then like a few of the elegans kind of side by side. So it was
that's cool. Really cool.
So I got a few nice pictures, and there was a really nice red-sided Sertalis, really nice red blotches up the sides, and followed him around taking pictures, paparazzi there for a bit. So
how fun.
Cool. So, it's always nice to see the first snake of the year.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. I need to start going up I try to get up around lunchtime in the early spring looking for snakes just up from work, maybe 5 miles up the canyon or something, and go
that's not bad.
For a little hike for half hour, and then you come back for my lunch break or whatever.
So, that's perfect.
Yeah, it's fun. I found probably 30 yellow-bellied racers last year. Just
wow!
Lunch hikes, and then a couple really nice rattlesnakes, and so fun. Probably find more if I did it in the evening.
Well, sure,
in the warmer months, but it's a little more of a hassle to drive back out to work and than it is to just go at lunch. But,
yep.
But I did find a canyon closer to home that was very productive. Found
good
half dozen rubber boas and a couple rattlesnakes and gopher snakes. So
that's
I'm excited
amazing.
to get to know that road a little better too.
Yeah.
So when Rob finally makes it up here, we'll make it easy to find a rubber bow and a yellow-bellied. You've seen yellow-bellied racers in the wild? Yeah. So
That's
I
cool.
guess they have those in Colorado as well. They're one of the more common snakes out here.
Very cool.
All right. Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got, where you fit into herpetoculture and.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I've been working primarily with snakes for the past 5 years or so.
Okay.
The majority of my collection is ball pythons, but I also had a really significant carpet collection. Including some inlands from you.
Yeah. I remember meeting you at Tinley for the first time.
Same. So I think I did maybe 4 or 5 seasons of carpets. And in the past year and a half or so, I've started transitioning over pretty significantly into monitors, small monitors. So blue tree monitors are the biggest ones that I have in my collection. So a lot of tree monitors, a few Adatria, and I have Ackies, and then I also have King's monitors that I can't get productive to save my life, which is really frustrating because I love them so much.
Yeah.
But
are they leucistic, or do they have the?
I have both. So I have het and leucistic, and but yeah, no luck. No luck with them. I've gotten a lot of slugs, and they're a little bit older, and so I'm sure that has something to do with it too. But I'm trying a few different things to, trying to put my males on diets to make them a little more spry and mixing up the groups and all of that. And hopefully we'll get a little bit of something, but anyway, so yeah, I've been working on that over the past year and a half. I got my first, tree monitor eggs last summer. Hatched out early this year, and got a whole bunch more coming. And I've been in the process of really significantly transitioning my collection. I no longer have snakes. Over the past, all of them, which it's been bittersweet. Because I had a facility where all my snakes were. It wasn't secure enough for keeping the monitors there.
Oh, okay.
And so so I had to pull all the monitors back home, and then I just had the snakes over there, and I was paying a whole lot of money for only having part of my collection there.
Yeah.
And they just kind of due to lots of children and space limitations at home and all of that sort of thing. If I brought some of the snakes home, it would have really limited my ability to work on the monitor projects I'm working on. And so I ended up, after probably 6 months of existential crisis, I ended up deciding to let the snakes go. And it was the right decision, but a very, very hard decision. So
I can imagine.
Yeah.
It's not an easy choice to make. I keep thinking the same thing. I just need to slim down my collection. And then I'm like, comes time to let some adults go, I'm like, yeah, never mind.
I know.
Yeah, it's
so hard.
Yeah.
And I went through several rounds of it. And for a while, I thought it was just going to be getting rid of all the ball pythons, and then I'd keep all the cool stuff. And then, once I realized that it just was going to make the most sense to let the facility go, that it kind of ended up making the decision for me. But yeah, I've one of the things that I think, getting more. I also travel a lot, and go herping on all sorts of different trips to do photography and herping. And I think one of the things one of the gifts I've gotten from that is it's given me another way of appreciating the animals other than just keeping them all and hoarding them all. Right. And so it's it's helped me get comfortable with the fact that I'm never going to be able to keep all of the animals that I think are super cool. like, you know what I mean? There's so many neat species out there that I love and would love to work with, but it's realistically not feasible. And so I've just kind of ended up, picking a lane, and that's what I'm going to do. And then I'll experience other things other ways. And I'm really lucky. Reptilandia is very close to me, and I can go see their awesome collections anytime I want. Yeah. So
I need to come visit
You should. It's pretty great.
It's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll make it out there at some point. Yeah.
You should come for Texas Carpet Fest sometime, because we have it there.
Yeah. That would be fun.
Yeah. Well, so anyway, so that's kind of my long story, but that's nice. Where I fit into things.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. And just after 5 years, so I understand you've left your full-time job and become a reptile breeder.
I did, yeah. I want to say a couple of years ago, I ended up leaving. I'm a lawyer, and I was working a really, really intense job. I was doing mental health work, and I was in dangerous situations a lot. And so it got to the point where I really needed to not be in that situation anymore. So I left for that reason, and then was fortunate that reptiles were at the point where I could kind of lean in that way. So.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yep. No,
but I've kind of shot myself in the foot by selling everything off. And now, before I got super productive with other stuff. So.
Yeah, that's always the trick, I guess. How's that balance? Well, and if you have a money pit of a facility where you're not able to keep your monitors, then it's probably a better move anyway. So hopefully that capital from selling off your adults will help you survive until the monitors kick in.
It will, and I'm getting there. I've hatched up 3 monitor clutches so far. I've got a couple more due within a month, and I've got several animals that are cycling every 3 months or so. So we're getting there finally. Yeah.
And I guess I'm not, I used to follow monitors pretty closely, and, just knew kind of what was out there and what was available. Are there many captive bred tree monitors available? Or, do you have like huge waiting lists for people who are interested in your?
Yeah.
Animals?
So I've only let a few of my animals go, particularly the blacks, because those ones are bred so rarely in captivity. The only time I've seen them recently was I imported some from Canada.
Okay.
And that was
Canadian cold blood. Is that?
Yes. Yeah. I got some of his captive babies. Yeah. He's really great. Yeah. He also helped me when my initial group of blue tree monitors ended up being 4.1, and I needed some females.
Yeah.
So,
that's nice.
So yeah, so he's been super helpful. But yeah, so I haven't started a wait list. I probably should, but it's mostly just that I don't want to deal with the hassle of keeping track of people.
Yeah. People tend to back out too after
they do.
They have to wait, and then when I inquired, I had the money, but now I don't.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I don't know. I'm thinking about maybe taking reservations on like half of an upcoming clutch, and trying that, and then it gives them more time to pay since they're more expensive animals as well. But I don't know. So far I've been having people like knocking down my door for animals. It's been incredibly, incredibly easy to place them. So that's been really nice. Yeah.
Well, one more question on kind of your background. I'm curious, like your research process to get into monitors. That's kind of one of my favorite parts of getting into
Me too.
Research. And so what kind of, what avenues did you chase to learn about?
Yeah. So, I think I started listening to all of like the monitor keeping podcast, and, as many, interviews as I could find with people who have been doing it for a while, just to kind of start soaking all of that in, kind of like I did with NPR as I was getting into carpets. I read a lot of papers. I spent a lot of time on Google Scholar and looking things up to read about, what various zoos had done that was successful in producing and that sort of thing. I chased down books, including old out of print books, and all of that stuff is just super fun for me. So and I'm still working on it. I chat with a lot of people to kind of hear some of the different nuances of how people are doing things, because it's one of the fun things with working with a species that hasn't been, or multiple species that haven't been fully unlocked yet, is there's there's a lot of things that are still being figured out, and so it's a lot of it's just talking to other people as well. Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah,
very, very good.
But it's my favorite. It's you're right. It's like it's one of the funnest parts for me. Is really diving deep.
The biggest thing for me, I think, was visiting Frank Reedus, because I heard all his
I can only
he's kind of an interesting guy, not very, I don't know, how do you describe him? He's kind of like an alpha male gorilla than a human or something. But really nice guy, but also kind of like a Riddler or something, trying to make you figure out. But seeing things firsthand, like kind of seeing his setups and that kind of thing just helped a lot more. It's almost like, the picture's worth 1,000 words kind of thing.
Yes.
Seeing it in action was really helpful. And
he has more knowledge on his little finger than I'm ever going to end up with. And so but yes, there's also that Riddler kind of characteristic to it as well, where you're like, I don't know what you want from me.
Exactly. Yeah. So it was nice to see, other people be successful that would maybe be more forthright with the information. But it was kind of fun to be quizzed or, try to figure things out. But, he didn't want to give you all the answers, I guess. But that was cool. I still really want to keep Gil and I, the Branch.
Gil and I are very cool.
Gillen's monitors are really cool lizards.
They really are. There are so many little cool Odatria out there that still aren't super common in the hobby. That's right up there.
One of these days, I guess, but he's still going on so many herp trips.
This is the problem. Yeah.
I've got this friend named Rob, and he just invites me and all these
trips.
What a jerk. It's horrible. It's terrible. No. Well, cool. Well, I think it's time to fight. Let's
do it.
Yeah. So we're going to be talking about kind of that, having a niche market, kind of like working with, tree monitors or something where not very many people are working, or not very people are successful at producing a lot. And then versus something like ball pythons where everybody works with them and everybody produces them pretty successfully. So, and you've been on both sides of that coin. So,
I have.
We'll go ahead and flip a coin and let you call it and see which side you want to defend.
Heads.
It is heads.
All right.
Toss, so you pick your side.
Well, I'm gonna pick the niche side, Justin. I'm gonna make you defend the more mainstream stuff.
All right, will do.
All right.
Yeah, I've kind of been on both sides a little bit too.
Yeah.
And as the winner of the coin toss, you get to either defer or you want me to go first, or do you?
Yeah, I'll defer. I'll let you go ahead first, Justin.
Sounds good.
I'm super nice.
So I am a niche person at heart as well. And, I love kind of the stuff that, I guess maybe you wouldn't call carpets niche, but Antaresia. I think
they still count as niche.
Yeah. Maybe not quite as broad stream as some groups, but fairly popular. And even then, like I kind of abandoned carpets when they were being imported in large numbers from Europe, and everybody was morph obsessed. I just kind of stuck around and bred my inlands and kind of kept quiet with the carpets and focused on Antaresia, which are kind of niche. So that's beyond the point. But most of my time at reptile shows is teaching people what Antaresia are, because most people have never heard of them. So
they definitely kind of niche.
Yeah, you definitely something is niche if nobody's heard of it, or very few people have heard of it. So, but at the same time, I was business partners with Ben Morrill of Rare Genetics Inc. When he lived in Utah. We partnered up on some projects, and our first project that we bought together was a pair of het pied ball pythons.
Oh wow!
Back when they were fairly pricey as the pied version. And so we both went in on the pair together, and then we, raised them up and bred them and produced 2 pieds in the first clutch out of 3 eggs. We got 2 pieds, so we got really lucky.
That's really great.
And kind of went down the rabbit hole with ball pythons, bought a bunch of different morphs, and kind of played that game back when there were not very many morphs,
Yeah.
pied, bumblebees were a big deal back then. It's about, so, and then, I had a bunch of kind of projects left over from that. And then I've actually moved all my ball pythons to a friend and kind of on breeding loan, and he's been producing them and
that's cool.
such. And so I'll, get half the babies out of it, but then he, has the other half. But I guess my point is, so all that background, but when I go to a reptile show, what do I sell at the reptile show or the ball pythons? I'm not selling a lot of, Antaresia, even though they're really cool and really underappreciated, people just when people think I want to buy a snake, they want to buy a ball python, boa constrictor, the corn snake. It's all kind of the major big name groups. And if you ask somebody, what reptiles have you kept? Ball python, boa constrictor, corn snake, they kind of list off the top 5 or 10 species that are commonly bred in the hobby. So I wonder sometimes if people even realize the breadth and depth of how many cool reptiles are out there. But
I think I mean, for me, it took years to kind of slowly unpack all of it. So it takes time for a lot of people, especially people who are coming at it from a not, really deep background in reptiles, people who didn't necessarily grow up with it and dive deep and nerd out all their childhood. So,
yeah. And I mean, I spent a lot of time thinking about reptiles and different kinds, and I still, had a boa constrictor, and although my first snake was a rubber boa, so I wouldn't necessarily call that mainstream, but there wasn't a lot known about them, so that didn't fare too well. So I guess that's the other, big side is there's a lot of people who know about them, a lot of people who are interested in them, and then a lot of people have worked with them, so there's a lot of knowledge known. So that kind of works in favor of you if you choose to do the mainstream species.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I think the flip side of that is that you have so many more animals in those species being produced because you have so many more breeders. You have so many people that it can be a little bit harder to stand out in a very, very crowded field. One of the things that I have really liked about niching down more is that it's, it's given me an ability to kind of develop a little bit more expertise and kind of more rapidly become someone who people look to, and associate with a particular species. And whereas that was a whole lot harder to do back when I was working in ball pythons, because it was such a crowded sea of people that it's, it was harder for any one person to stand out.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I just went and did that fun little quick search on Morph Market to see, and ball pythons, there's 36,537 available on Morph Market right now. So
yep. I did.
Crazy.
I did a similar search last summer, and there were like 60,000 ball pythons and 16 tree monitors.
Really?
Yeah. And I was like, okay, I think I'm moving the right direction.
And even with carpet pythons, there's 162 available. So, 36,000 less carpet pythons are big
difference.
Yeah.
It's a big difference.
And I mean, granted, there's a lot of diversity in the different morphs and all that kind of stuff. And I think there's still a lot of interest in that, even though everybody says the sky is falling every other year, everything's going away. But ball pythons seem to be pretty mainstream, pretty stable for the most part.
For sure.
So you're always going to have, something, but at the same time, you got to kind of chase what's cool and what's in fad for the year, the season, or whatever. So that makes it kind of more of a, I guess, Pokemon thing rather than a reptile thing. And I think, it sounds like you're in the same boat I am. I want to, get into the natural history. I want to learn about them.
Yes.
I don't just want some formula and have different paint jobs that makes them cool. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of the things I like about the particular direction I went in, that what doesn't necessarily apply to all niche species, but a lot of times with ball pythons, it's really just throwing a couple snakes in the box and they're going to make babies, and that's about all you got to do. Yeah. And it requires just a lot more thought and attention and really, really observing your animals and learning their behavior and learning the particularities of each individual female and what she likes and what she doesn't and what's normal for her and what's not and all of that. And so for me, I like that it's a little bit more complex. It's like, it's more, I don't know, mentally engaging for me.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do like a little bit of a challenge, and
same.
That's the fun of it.
Yeah. So back to what you were saying before, you were talking about how, the more mainstream species, people kind of already have a knowledge base, and know about it. And, I will say that kind of the flip side for me has been, I spend a lot of time just educating on, my animals. I vended, a couple of shows recently, no animals to sell, but I brought various species of, Prosonus complex animals to, show people this is what an adult looks like. This is, the difference between a green tree monitor and a cordensis, or, all of those kinds of different things. And yeah, I spend a lot of time, educating, and it's, it's, I guess it's how you look at it, right? Because it's on one hand, it's, you're kind of the master of your own destiny there, right? Like you can kind of, the amount of effort you put in and all of that, it can have a more direct result in what you see, but it is something very different that I have to do now. I didn't used to have to do a lot of education in the same way. I'd have to talk about morphs and, and carpet subspecies and all of that sort of thing too. But there's a lot more education.
Yeah, for sure.
That goes into it now.
And I think that's, it probably goes either way. I mean, because if you're working with the mainstream stuff, you can just be a face in the crowd, and I've seen a lot of people, handle that differently. You got your Ralph Davis, who's like, making Ralph Davis thongs and, having people fight at, for him, or fighting people at reptile shows and things like that, and calling people out and causing drama and all that kind of nonsense. And that definitely is not my, my right area. And then you've got people like, Jay, what's his name? One of the bigger names starts with a J. Right. I don't know why I try to bring up names on the podcast.
Are you thinking
Justin Kabilka?
Oh, Justin Kabilka, yeah.
Yeah, where he just sorry. Yeah, my brain doesn't work so well as I approach 50, but Justin Kabilka does a good job at like making some really crazy looking mutations and really kind of getting his name out there, getting his image, getting people excited about his projects, and just having basically, that corner market of the ball python industry, and doing it in a positive manner rather than a drama manner, Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. I think a lot of us can follow that model, and
And I think regardless of if you're mainstream or more, if you kind of need to, mainstream or niche, you've got to, get yourself out there and get people to know who you are and see you as somebody who knows and is competent and knows what they're doing, and not just some flipper that's buying a bunch of, ratty things out of Indonesia or something. So, and I, with the mainstream, that can be challenging when there's 36,000 available ball pythons, how to make yours stand out. And that takes effort and work, especially if you're competing with somebody who is full-time. If you're a hobbyist breeder, what do? You can wholesale them, but then you're not really getting much out of it, as far as the monetary side, or you can give them away and, make somebody's day or whatever, that is not the worst thing in the world either. It's a hobby after all for most people. And so
that kind of, I guess, takes me to one of the other things that I had kind of thought about coming into this. And that's the issue of overproduction.
Yeah.
And, you're just by nature of things going to see a lot more overproduction in things that are very common. And that ended up being one of the things that kind of pushed me away from the ball python stuff. I didn't really love, breeding a clutch of largely garbage pet quality snakes for that chance of maybe getting the one really, really amazing, cool snake. Like, because then you've got the majority of these animals that you're making, like, what are you, like, are they, you could be wholesaling them, you could be selling them as pets, but are they really going to people who want them and need them and are going to care for them appropriately? And that's part of why I ended up going the direction I did to going a little bit more niches. I wanted to make sure that if I was reproducing these animals, it was, animals there was a real need to make more of. And so, so that was for me, one of the big things there was the overproduction issue.
Yeah. And that's always been kind of a challenging thing. Anytime you start putting a bigger price tag on a paint job, you almost think nobody should be keeping a ball python morph that doesn't appreciate a wild type ball python.
No, that's very true.
Doesn't have a wild type ball python. It's like, most people may not even know what a wild type ball python looks like anymore. I remember back in the day, people would have all their normal males out, for $20 or something out on the table. And, that does a disservice to the animal for sure, because then it gives it the appearance of garbage,
Right. It becomes just this fungible thing.
Yeah. And, maybe if they were used for like king cobra food or something, maybe that's an appropriate and reasonable use for them. I don't know, if people are going to devalue them anyway, and they're going to languish because they're not worth as much as this other paint job ball python, then, maybe that's what the point we're at. So that's a hard and a tricky and ethical, slippery slope for sure. But absolutely
it is.
But I guess that really kind of grinds my gears when somebody is only into something for a paint job or a price tag. That just doesn't sit well with me. So
no, I hear you.
Yeah.
And it's one of the reasons that I'm obviously working with tree monitors, and there's a relatively high price tag associated with them. But I also have a few species that are weird niche species that, like I have Guatemalan spiny-tailed iguanas. Like, they're never going to be like, this big, huge thing in the hobby, but I love them and they're fun for me. And that's why I have them.
Yeah.
And I think that, and I guess fun is a part of it too, right? Like,
you gotta keep yourself interested and keep yourself excited.
Yeah.
I think, Armand Herptime, he's done a really good job at, kind of getting people excited about the micro geckos.
Oh, absolutely.
Also kind of fulfilling, the cage requirements. So sell you a cage with your gecko and things like that. And he's really kind of created a market in a lot of ways for those small geckos and made them kind of mainstream and popular with his really, adept social media accounts and things.
Absolutely.
Like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That goes to both sides. You've got to really make yourself stand out, even if you work with niche species that everybody wants. I guess maybe you might have to do that a little less, because if you're one of the few people that's producing them and a lot of people are interested in them, you're okay. Especially if they're difficult and you have success with them.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not too hard to find people who are going to share in that excitement.
Yeah.
And it's hard to beat a tree monitor too.
It's hard to beat a tree monitor. They're so cool.
Yeah.
They're so much fun.
I remember going into Zoo Herp when I was like 12, 13 years old, somewhere around there. My dad drove me down to Salt Lake to go see, and this is Louis Porras, who's, you know, a pioneer and a really, you know, great guy out there. And he had this reptile facility, you know, warehouse where he'd bring in all sorts of stuff, and where I first saw a bearded dragon, where I first saw, you know, a black tree monitor.
Yeah.
And I just sat and watched. He had like this big, you know, cage out front, you know, before you went into the reptile room kind of thing, like in the lounge area or whatever you want to call it. And I just sat and stared at that thing and just watched it crawling all over the, you know, just constantly moving and constantly interesting, you know, and I'm just like, wow. And then, you know, over next to it was some crocodile monitor in a giant cage. I'm
Amazing.
Like, wow. You know, you're seeing all this stuff you've only heard about or read about in books.
Yeah.
It's pretty sweet.
Yeah. And I think, you know, the more animals that we're successfully working with in the hobby, that it reduces, you know, the more people are working with these niche things and the more they're actually seeing success in breeding them, hopefully that also means the less demand that we're putting on wild populations. Yeah. And, you know, for animals that are already pretty endangered and not necessarily well protected, that means something.
No, I totally agree. And, you know, I guess you can do that with the mass produced stuff too, to some extent, because, you know, if people only want morphs, then you're not going to be importing a ton of ball pythons out of the wild because they're not morphs. They're just
this is very,
type, you know?
This is true.
So,
this is true.
So I guess that maybe has a similar effect, but, and then, you know, we're kind of sheeple in a lot of ways. We like to follow the crowd and do what's popular and that kind of thing. At least a lot of people are that way. I tend to be a little bit of a rebel, and, you know, I never got into wearing the right clothes or, you know, liking the right things. I guess I was always a weird kid with reptiles, and, you know, so I think, you know, when we that's another plus, I guess, about the commonly bred stuff, is that a lot of people want to follow the crowd and have the same things that their friend has or whatever, you know. Yeah. And you see that a lot, like people that get into the ball python morphs get really excited and bring their friends into it, or, you know,
I mean, it's an entry point for a lot of people, and niche things are never going to be that entry point. And
they're more difficult typically by nature. They're a little more difficult than the common stuff, but so it's but I guess that's what makes it fun, you know. I'm like you, I like a little bit of a challenge, and I guess maybe the other another benefit of working with something that's worked with by a lot of people is that, you know, the community, and sometimes that can work against you too. You know, sometimes the communities are not very welcoming of newcomers, or, you know, I remember one time I was talking with a big ball python boa breeder, and he said, it's people like you who are ruining the hobby or something. And I'm like, people like me are the ones who are buying your overpriced, pretty, you know, paint job snakes. Like, we're not ruining anything for you. We're your whole market, buddy. So you know, start, you know, kissing the ring here, but no.
Oh my gosh.
It was a little weird. And to say that directly, like, well, and I guess his point is, you're buying my snakes and then you're breeding them and then you're underselling, you know, you're undercutting me. So, you know, if you're the big man on top, you've got to be ahead of the game, or else, you know, you can't complain about if they're getting there. Cause if you've bred them already and they're buying them from you, you have at least 2 years head start on them. And so, you know, and that's if they crank them out as early as they can, you know, and which usually doesn't happen. So, I don't know. You gotta stay up with the game. And I guess that can be a pro or a con, because if you do it well, if you're like Justin Kabilka and you stay ahead of the game and keep producing things that make people go, wow, I need that, or tell me the recipe to make that, then, I just happen to have all the ingredients. Here you go. Buy, 5 or 6 snakes from me to combine the genes together.
No, then that goes to the whole morph thing as well. But in terms of, the stacking the genes, and I need, now I suddenly need a collection with 10 snakes where I might have only needed 2, because I've got to stack all these things together and, and all of that. And it gets really big really fast. Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess that's another, benefit of that large market is, if they do have all those things, then it does make people have a larger collection of that species or that type, and so, if you're just breeding wild type animals, you need a male and a female, and then you're making more of that wild type look or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean,
obviously, and you can line breed and you could work for different looks and that sort of thing, but it's a much longer, slower process. And it's, they're still, they're still relatively wild type.
At the same time, those longer type projects also hold their value longer. And it's not like a race to the bottom to buy mine, hurry before somebody else, tries to sell you the exact same thing, because there's 20 of them, or 150 of them on Morph Market right now,
So, no, absolutely.
Yep. How to make yourself stand out from the crowd, or how to get people to buy your stuff when you have the exact same stuff everybody else has. Yeah. But that's more to your side. So I'm just handing points over.
It's all good.
But so I think, getting people and I guess, looking at reptile shows, you go to reptile shows and you really see kind of a lot of the same stuff. Sometimes you don't know when one table ends and another begins. And so I think it's kind of interesting too, because I'll have, the niche Antaresia or whatever, and they'll stop and go, "Oh, what's that?
That's a weird looking ball python."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What morph is that? And then, you educate somebody and they're like, wow, it's kind of refreshing to see something different or learn about something new and things. So, but at the same time, they keep walking and go over and buy a ball python or a crested gecko or something. So it's a little bit frustrating, but at the same time, over time, I've seen that change a little bit in my local community. Now, when I ask people, they're like, you told us about them last year, or you told us about me. So they're starting to get the picture, but there's always new people to bring into the fold, I guess, or to get excited about different things. But I guess, even though I'm kind of trying to fight for that mainstream thing, I would like to see more diversity in the hobby. And I think it used to be much more diverse. You'd go to a reptile show, but at the same time, it was like also more imported stuff rather than captive bred stuff. So I do appreciate the kind of that mainstream move towards captive breeding and producing all these morphs and all these things. That's obviously they're all captive bred, and you're not bringing a lot of stuff out of the wild. But at the same time, and I do see kind of these movements towards other things and other species, and you see a lot of ball python breeders getting.
That's what I was about to say as well. Over the past year, a lot of my ball python breeding friends have found, another species to get into. And that's great for everybody. Whether it's like, Asian rat snakes or, some weird obscure gecko or whatever it is, like a lot of my friends have been branching out. And, they might still, ball pythons might still be their bread and butter, but people are starting to, see some more of what's out there. And then that means more things at shows and more, all of that. And that's a big deal to me. I don't know. I think it's really cool.
For sure. Yep. I do love going to a show where you see something new or weird.
Me too.
You just like, tell me about this, even if I will probably never keep it, I think it's exciting. I was listening to Craig Trumbauer, and he's told this story on a number of podcasts, but where he saw some kid sitting at a booth with some smooth green snakes or rough green snakes or something, and that's all he had at his table. And he's like, this is kind of the coolest thing at the show because nobody else has them.
That's awesome.
They're captive bred. That's good job. Yep. Keep it going.
Yep. Yeah.
So that's fun.
Yeah.
You never know when something's going to take off. Like, I mean, for crying out loud, crested geckos were thought to be extinct, and now they're, overrunning our reptile shows, and very easy to care for and very easy to breed. And,
and a lot of that has to do with, the powdered diets that's played a very huge role in all of the New Caledonian stuff.
Yeah. Alan Rapace is a very smart man.
Yep.
He's a good businessman.
Absolutely.
And a fun guy to be around. He's a hoot. Yeah. He took me out in his side by side, or I don't even know if you could call it that, because it was all souped up in, and he took me out, just cruising through the desert and over these big bumps, but it was like we were just riding on a cloud. It was just,
wow.
But man, that guy knows how to drive. It scared the crap out of me. My daughter was in the back, just like this huge smile plastered on her face. And I'm up front, like white knuckle, like, are we going to flip? Or we're going to die. And I asked him, like, how many times have you flipped this? Never. Like, why would I spent all this money on it? Why would I flip it? Yeah, I'm a good driver. What are you asking me? Sorry, Owen. Yeah, but he's a smart man.
Yep.
And, I guess, you can make a niche species become a mainstream species through that process.
That's true.
I think that's kind of the point with the crested geckos is they were very niche for a while. And actually some of the species still are niche. Some of the ones that are a little more difficult to breed, that are maybe smaller, that are just as cool, but as easy. And so, I think anytime you have something that's more of a challenge, more of a risk, more of a, you're not going to make your investment back, that gives people pause. If you have a recipe and a surefire plan how to breed this thing, then you're going to make your money back, and it's not as much of a risk and it's not as scary. And I think that speaks to a lot of people who, if they're spending $200 or $300 on an animal, they don't want to risk that. They don't want it to be a throwaway pet. And I think maybe that's from some of the more dismal past that we've had, where people, we had a lot of throwaway pets or a lot of imports that just died after a couple of weeks of being in your care. And so that can be,
I'll also, this kind of cuts your direction, but one of the, if you're relatively new and you're getting started, you don't want to invent the wheel. You don't know what you're doing. You want to, you want stuff that's tried and true. You don't want to, put all of this money in and then lose all of your animals. And so there's a lot of reasons that people, when they're starting out, go for these more common species.
Yeah.
And then having been through the process of totally changing my collection, that's not a thing that a lot of people are going to do. And so, I wouldn't have gotten into tree monitors from the very beginning. There's no way that I was competent enough to even take that on as a project until I had several seasons breeding other species of reptiles. Mm-hmm. And, and I'm not a huge fan of the whole starter reptile concept because, I'm get what you like and what, as long as you're willing to put in the effort to learn and that sort of thing. But, anyway, I don't remember where I was going with that.
That's a great point. You usually stick with what you start with,
right.
And there's probably a reason you liked it in the beginning, even if it is kind of a starter reptile, or or they're at least commonly available, lots known about them, and so it gives you confidence moving forward with those species that you're not gonna mess it up, and if you have trouble, there's going to be a lot of people that can give you advice or help you out or things like that.
Absolutely.
Yep. And then once you do well with one, you're probably going to buy a mate for that or that kind of thing. And then it just kind of balloons out from there. But I do like, the idea of, I don't know. I heard this, I think it was Yasser, what's his last name? Musafa.
Yeah.
Up from Washington, but he made a post once that said, everybody should work with a species that is worth nothing, that you love just because it's cool, and
I think there's something to that.
Yeah. Yeah. And even if you don't have success with it, or if you have a hard time learning, how to breed it or how to keep it well, and just get to that point and just have it just for the love of,
or
reptiles.
This is a crazy concept too. We don't have to breed everything we keep.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there's kind of a movement towards that, thought process, and it doesn't gel well with the thing where there's 36,000 available, but it does gel well with, a little more difficult, if you can keep one tree monitor happy and healthy and alive for a number of years, then that's a reward in and of itself.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I agree.
Absolutely.
Once you start buying more and more animals, trying to make a big breeder, make yourself a big breeder, you usually do worse than you do with just one or two animals.
No, it's very true.
Keep up with easily.
It's very true. It's really easy for it to scale way too fast and way too big.
For sure.
And one of the things I like about being in my house right now is I've got a very limited amount of space I can work with, and that kind of keeps me a little more contained, which is a good thing.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious about that too, because I, in my research and learning about monitor lizards and things like that, it seems like they would go gangbusters and produce, and then all of a sudden they would just stop and they would stop producing, and you'd almost have to hold back, quite a few animals just to keep the production moving. Do you have kind of a plan or thought process for that?
From what I've heard, that's particularly common in the Australian dwarf species, where they'll, and it's kind of what I'm experiencing with my King's monitors right now, where they had a really successful period of breeding and then they just kind of flipped off.
Okay.
And I got them when they flipped off, and the previous person
reaped all the rewards.
Got everything on them, and then I got them as proven animals, and only they were proven animals that had kind of shut down. And so, I mean, I have one pair of Ackies that they've given me one clutch, and they've only been, I've had them for quite some time, and they've only been interested in mating that one time. They're an older pair. And so I'm keeping a number of those babies just so that I have that blood to continue in my project to mix with other pairs. But I mean, it definitely can become a lot, and any animal that you keep, that's a whole lot of space that you've got to be able to plan on. And so that's definitely a tricky piece. And it's something I'm constantly like running into and trying to figure out as animals are growing up and needing to move into different cages. And I originally thought I was going to keep all of my first clutch of black tree monitors. And as they've been growing, I'm like, well, maybe that's not such a good plan. That's definitely a thing. And part of how I'm handling that is by having empty enclosures. But
that's hard to plan for too, because you're like, you get excited about it. You never know who's going to produce and how many they're going to be. And it's a lot of what ifs or questionable things. And
tree monitors are pretty, they can be really great. Like they'll be, pretty much once the female starts cycling, if all things go well, I mean, she'll be pretty much every 3 months on the dot. Okay. My black tree monitor female, you could almost set a watch by her.
Okay.
She's really consistent. And again, I don't know, at some point she might shut off, or who knows, but
that's interesting. And they have kind of smaller clutches.
They do. Yeah. So, black, I've never heard of a black tree monitor clutch bigger than 4 eggs.
Okay. So kind of like a gecko type thing?
A little bit
Once
more,
month
a little
you get
bit
two
more.
eggs, or-
Like 4 to 6 is pretty common. You'll have, I think I've heard in blues, there have been outlier bigger clutches. But typically 4 to 6 is about what you're going to get per clutch. Yeah. But you can get 3 to 4 clutches a year. And so it ends up being a pretty decent number of eggs.
Yeah, I kind of like that idea of spreading out,
Yes.
I'd rather have, 4 clutches of 3 eggs than 1 clutch of 12 eggs.
Yeah, so you're not quite so inundated with babies all at the same time.
Yeah. Then you can kind of spread out over time, different sizes, different,
The downside is they're incubating for 5.5 months. And so that's a little bit nerve wracking to, wait half a year to see if you hatch babies.
Right. Yeah. And that's, I imagine, I guess there's ways to kind of get around that, like larger incubation chambers and,
I mean, you can only play with temperature so much, and then things could potentially go wrong. And, a little bit, you could probably mess around with it a little bit, but I haven't heard of people shaving significant amounts of time off of tree monitor incubation. No. And I tend to incubate a little bit on the lower side, just because I'm more comfortable incubating longer. And I think a lot of times you get a little bit better yolk absorption and that sort of thing when they incubate a little longer.
Yeah.
And
I think too, like, I guess I have I have a little bit of experience with one species that had the veiled chameleons, where their eggs take several, 6 months to incubate, and you'd almost forget about them, and oh crap, I got to take care of those eggs. And so I lost a few along the way, and pressure changes. Like I'd open the container, and all of a sudden the eggs start popping. Like, well, what is going on? Hurry and close the lid. And so I think like a bigger incubation chamber would be more consistent or stable, rather than having a small one that's going to dry out or something.
Yeah, it's valid.
You have to constantly be adding water or things like that. So
yeah.
That's a fun problem to have, I guess. It
is a fun problem to have. There are worse problems for sure. Yeah.
Do you use the overwater method, or what do you?
So
the sim container.
So I use sim containers. I've been doing water crystals instead of just loose water.
Sure.
And that's worked out pretty well for me. It overhydrated my Ackies a little bit. And so after they hatched and did fine, but after that first clutch, I'm doing those on vermiculite, but still in the sim. Yeah. But suspended over damp vermiculite, and that's working pretty well for them. Cool. They just, need a little bit less humidity.
That kind of goes into our discussion last week. We talked about, the support, either breeding animals versus producing like feeders or products and things like that. And Sim's a great example of that, making an innovation that you came up with, a business model and things. So
let me tell you how much money I've spent on wood for enclosures. Like my wood guy is doing pretty well.
Yeah. I always, I visited the San Diego Zoo back in the day, and Brett Baldwin was kind of pioneering the tree monitor caging and using like these shower stalls, and then having like a front. And so it was basically a shower stall, and then they attach a nest box to the side, and
that's cool.
That is ingenious. Like that's a great really cool idea.
Yeah.
And they were being very successful with them and doing very well with the tree monitors at the San Diego Zoo. So I thought, well, if I ever keep tree monitors, I'm just going to get a line of shower stalls and
there you go.
Throw them in there and some plants and lots of branches and stuff like that.
Yeah. I'm just now starting into the whole planted enclosure thing, and that's like a whole other world of I had fake plants up until recently, and now I'm starting to plant them, and it's like a whole other world of things to learn. So it's super fun.
How are a lot of monitors are very destructive.
Yeah. So you got to there are some specific hardier species to look for, like money trees tend to do pretty well because they're a little bit more dense stalks, and but yeah, you don't want the live plants where like the monitor is going to be like trampling all over it all the time. So you kind of also need to plan, see what parts of the enclosure the animal uses, and maybe put it over here where the animal doesn't spend as much time.
do you also have the really intense like basking spots like with the
Frank? Not as high as with Ackies. Tree monitors are generally a little bit more temperate, temperature wise. I'll do a basking spot maybe a little bit over 100, but not like 120, 130 like you might do with an Ackie.
Okay, so that's probably more conducive to plants as well.
Which is also more conducive to the humidity levels that you need. Yeah. Like if you had to have temperatures that scorching, it would be really hard to keep humidity where it needs to be.
Sure.
Yeah. And humidity is like in Texas, I'm sure it would be worse in Utah, but like it's the thing I feel like I'm constantly fighting is humidity.
Right. That can be a challenge for sure.
Yeah.
But, yeah. Well, any other topics that you've got in your...
Yeah, I think we hit all the stuff that I had kind of thought about heading into this. Yeah.
It's been a very productive discussion. I'm Rob. I'm sure
you're
chomping
smiling in the back.
Yeah. Do you have anything you want to throw in there as well?
No, beyond saying that I think this is fantastic. And Kori, I really appreciate all the great, I think you went into super detail, and a lot of podcasts to me fall short in terms of not diving deep. It kind of brushes the top of the specific, but I think you went into a lot of that real specific there. So I think there's a ton of great stuff here.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks so much for coming on. And this has been a really nice discussion.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. I'm sure our listeners got some good stuff out of this. So I kind of like to finish out the show a little bit talking about things that we've seen over the last week or month or something that have been cool in herpetoculture. If anything's got you excited or anything like that that you want to share. I'm focused mostly on like, where I'm going herping and, what potential things I'm going to see. So I've been spending a lot of time going over iNaturalist and other things, but
what are you hoping to target on this upcoming trip?
Milk snakes, Utah milk snakes. And that's pretty much the focus. Yeah. Okay. So I'll be flipping rocks again.
Yep.
So yeah, my back and my thighs are not going to be thanking me after this weekend, but that's the way it goes, I guess.
Yep.
Yeah. And we flip or, looked under, I guess we don't flip them. We just look under them and put them back how we found them. But, looked under a lot of rocks, on Monday, and my thighs were pretty, beat the next day. I've got one calf that's just like a knot. I don't know.
Oh man.
Yeah. It's kind of, fun. My dad, he's, 20 something years older than me. So he was, he's in his 70s now, and he was getting a little lightheaded. He's like, I got to sit down for a minute. I'm like, Dad, please, don't overdo it. You don't even have to flip rocks if you don't want to. But, yeah. So,
like you can be the lookout. You just watch, see if something runs along with this.
Right. And so it was fun to go out with him and,
that's really cool.
Conversations and stuff. It's really fun that he has, he's interested in going out with me and stuff. So
that's really cool.
Good times. And he, it's kind of, hopefully I get to pay it back a little bit, because he would always take me out backpacking and things. And I always wanted to go to the desert, so he would take me there. And I think he likes the mountains better, but he would take me to the deserts because I really liked. And there was, I always thought there was a better chance of finding reptiles out in the desert, but man, learning about a lot of the stuff in Utah, there's a lot of mountainous.
You guys have some cool stuff.
Yeah, it's a secret we're kind of trying to keep a little bit. We don't want to be inundated with herpers out here, but man, there's some really great Utah herpers that, oh man, I was just looking at a few YouTube videos getting ready for this weekend, getting pumped up, or looking at, the size of rocks they were finding stuff under and that kind of thing.
Oh, that's cool.
And there's some good herpers out there that find a lot more than I do. Yeah, good times. But I don't know. Have you seen anything cool that's gotten you excited lately? Or
so, Nothing much herping. I've only done a little bit of herping so far this spring, and just saw that one diamondback. I think the thing in the hobby that's been the most interesting for me and exciting for me was seeing my buddy Parker hatch out Boamai, because the golden
Very
spotted
cool.
tree monitors, you really don't see those, especially captive hatch. So that's a really big deal for my little sphere of things. So
no, that's cool.
Yeah, so that's fun. That was a really cool one.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And they're kind of similar to the black tree monitors, right? They're kind of more grayish colored, or
yeah. So they're trying to think how I would say it. They're kind of, I would say they're almost like visually a little bit more similar to like Cordensis, where they have more of like the lacy kind of pattern as opposed to the really heavy striping. But more of a like yellowish color to it, yellowish orangish kind of color to it as opposed. But I could see where you'd go with the black tree monitor, maybe like a black tree monitor with as a baby with, if it kept its spots and the spots were a little bit bigger.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't even know if that was a thing back when I was researching monitors heavily.
Yeah.
Maybe, I'm sure it was a
thing. They're quite similar to
well.
Keith Horneye.
Okay. Yeah. That's what I was thinking. Like that spotty type looking thing.
Yeah.
But kind of more grayish colored rather
than
like a green or a.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. So I don't know. That I thought was really neat, but yeah, I don't know. I can't think of anything else off the top of my head right now.
Yeah. Yeah. There's, I don't know. I mentioned that podcast with the feeders, and I listened to a few of the episodes that Project Herpculture had up there. And then I been listening to Cush's Corner. Stephen Cush, he's been doing really good stuff. With his,
there's so many people putting out good content now. It's really hard to keep up with everything.
I know. Yeah. I've kind of caught up lately. I was kind of got out of listening to Reptile podcasts for a little bit, but yeah.
Every once in a while I just take a break from it, 'cause I'm like, my whole life is reptiles. I need to like do something else in my free time.
Right. have other interests.
Yeah.
Rob, you got anything for us?
Yeah, absolutely. I would double down on the Dean Mismer Project Herpculture on grasshoppers. I thought that was excellent. We were just talking about that on the trip. We were talking about a lot of the Cush episodes on the trip. I was complaining about Squadcast on our Cush episode that hasn't come out yet on the trip. So, yeah, all of this sounds familiar to me, and it's all great.
Yeah. That's for sure. Yeah. Yeah. I'm very much looking forward to fixing this issue so we can actually have you involved in the conversation. It's been really frustrating with you not chiming in. I think our listeners are probably the worst for the wear as well, not having their Rob fix every week. So we'll get this fixed soon and get Rob back on and a more active participant. But yeah, well, Kori, where can people find you?
Yeah, Kori Martin Reptiles, Instagram, Facebook. That's usually the easiest place to find me.
Awesome. You went with the smart choice of your name in your business.
You know, so the amount of creativity involved was pretty substantial. I just figured I would simplify everything and not have people try to remember a business name and a person's name.
Yeah. Well, and then if you're like Kori Martin's ball pythons, then
exactly. That would
kind of back yourself into a corner. You leave yourself the freedom to work with whatever you want.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, and I always think that's interesting too, because I think of Rico Walder, and everybody thinks of him as a green tree python, emerald tree boa, but he was a turtle guy. Most of his, and when we were in Australia, he would spend a lot of time looking for turtles and looking at, we went and swam with the pig-nosed turtles in a collection. And this guy had a huge indoor, or not indoor, but an enclosed pond. And he had, fly river turtles or pig-nosed turtles that were swimming around in this giant pond, and he had like beaches that he built up for them to nest on.
Oh, wow.
He was really successful breeding them. And then he had a filter pond that supported the big. Oh, there we go. muted myself somehow, but it was well planted. This supporting pond was well planted, and it had other species of turtles. And, all of us were swimming with the fly river turtles, and, they're like the freshwater sea turtles. And you're just like, this is so cool. And Rico's over in the other pond, like trying to find the little turtles in the filter. And he's like seeing how it's working funny. And all this kind of stuff. But yeah, he was really geeking out about turtles. And I'm like, wait, you're a tree boa and a green tree python.
Yeah.
Like, what are you messing with turtles? You're like, oh no, I'm a turtle guy. Like, I was a turtle guy long before I was a green tree python guy.
Interesting.
So it was kind of cool. But yeah, I mean, that's the beauty of reptiles is we can have different interests and change those interests over time and
absolutely
look at different things and have new challenges like you're doing with the tree monitors. And we wish you the best of success.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Expect to see great things from you. So
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks so much.
Yeah. We'll also thank Eric and the crew, Morelia Pythons radio crew, and we're sure happy to be under their umbrella and be a part of the Morelia Pythons radio crew team. And thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you again next week for more Reptile Fight Club.